Hi there, I'm Gary, one of the A-Level Maths and Further Maths lecturers at Kenilworth College. I just thought I'd take a few moments to talk to you about what studying the subject involves at college level and where the subject might be able to lead you in the future. Now, no doubt if you're watching this video, you've enjoyed your maths at GCSE and you're looking to take it further and are strongly considering it as one of your choices. Now, if you really enjoy the subject and have got the most out of it at GCSE, then I'd highly recommend it for you. We do say that to start on the course you need to have a GCSE grade 6 or above, but most important thing is that you have a real passion for the subject and it's something that you really enjoy and want to get the most out of. We do say that when you start the course you come to us with strong algebra skills, so if that's something that's a bit rusty at the moment, I'd highly recommend that you hone those skills, practice those sorts of questions so you're ready to go when you begin the course. About 2/3 of the course is algebra based, so it's something you really do need to enjoy and not something you just simply put up with. It's a subject that's really desired by employers, and a question I'm always asked is why am I studying what I'm studying in maths at the moment? But it may not necessarily be the topic itself that you're going to use in the future, but the skills you're developing whilst you're studying it. So things like good problem solving skills, logical thinking skills are things that you naturally develop through the course, and those are the skills that employers are looking for and why A-Level Maths on your CV looks good to them. It's also a facilitating subject, so it does fit together quite nicely with any combination of subjects really. Obviously there's the obvious subjects of the sciences, geology, business, computer science, but it fits into with other subjects as well that you might not necessarily think. So things like geography and psychology. But really any combination works well as long as maths is something you really enjoy. It will certainly take you places in the future. It's also the case that research has found that A-Level Maths tends to lead to an overall increase on your salary in the future compared to those who haven't studied A-Level Maths. So I think around 11% higher on top of those who haven't studied the subject. So we start the year by bridging the gap between GCSE and A-Level. So we take a look at some algebra very early on, but taking a look at some more GCSE standard content to begin with. So we'll have a look at indices and surds, solving quadratics, rearranging equations, before we then start building up to other topic areas that you may not be so familiar with. So we'll start looking at binomial expansion very early on, which extends what you've done with expanding brackets. We do that to higher powers. We'll take a look at the area of logs and exponentials, which is something you haven't really dealt with before at GCSE, but something that is really crucial for extending the types of equation that we can solve in the future. We'll then build up to the huge area of calculus, so looking at differentiation and integration, which you'll develop further in the second year as well. Again, an area of maths that you won't have really seen before, but it extends so much what we can do with our mathematics. We'll finish off the core content, so the standard content that you're more familiar with trigonometry, and again, naturally extending that further beyond what you did at GCSE, before we move on to the applied content shortly after Christmas, where we have a look at statistics and mechanics. Statistics itself is broken into two main areas. So we have a look at handling data, so being able to calculate averages, the spread of data, and then being able to represent that in a graphical form so that we can easily compare two data sets as well. We also then have a look at probability and being able to calculate the likelihood of things happening, and then look at different probability distributions to make things easier for us in calculating those probabilities. Mechanics is more physics based. So if you are studying physics, this will certainly help to support the mechanics side of the course, although it's not necessary that you are studying physics. We do tend to look at things in a more algebraic fashion, and there are some subtle differences between the physics and what we do in mechanics, but certainly you will be well supported having already done most of the content in physics already. So that looks at forces acting on objects, looks at the Suvat equations as well, and looking at the idea of constant acceleration. And what it really emphasises is the idea of mathematical modelling as well. So taking a look at things in a very simple sense. So most of the questions we'll look at will ignore the effects of air resistance, for instance, which is probably not a good thing to do because we don't live in a vacuum. But then we start to think, well, what's wrong with our answers? What can we do to refine things? And that really is so important in mathematics, the whole idea of using mathematics to model something in a simple way, then start refining things and making the model more complicated. And that's used in all sorts of industries, and again, skills that will be really useful in the future. At the end of the first year, you'll have an end of year progression exam, and then you start the second year of the course, whereby we are naturally developing what was covered in the first year. So we'll develop our calculus further, we'll develop trigonometry a lot further as well as sprinkling in a few newer topics along the way. Mechanics and stats will be developed further as well, and we'll start to look at further probability distributions and start making the mechanics problems more complicated as well. So whereas in the first year, mechanics problems will be on a horizontal surface, in the second year, they'll be on an inclined surface, bringing in some angles, therefore bringing in some trigonometry. So there will be some links between the core and the applied along the way as well, to show you where the core can be applied to everyday life. And that's something we'll try to sprinkle into the course as well, so you have a good idea and bearing of where these things are studied and where they can be useful. At the end of the second year, it's all exam based, so you'll have 3 exams, 2 on the core content and 1 on the applied, so the stats and mechanics. Now they're all equally weighted, so 2/3 of the course will be all of your core maths, and then 1/3 will be your applied. In terms of further maths, because I know some of you watching this might be interested in taking further maths as well, it's usually considered as a 4th choice for most people. And for that reason, and because unless you are really certain that you want to go down the maths route in the future, further maths is the only A-level where we offer an AS qualification at the end of the first year. So unlike your other A-levels, you will sit an external qualification, you will get a grade from it, and at that stage you've got 2 choices. You can choose to drop further maths at that stage and carry on with your other 3 choices and keep options a bit more wide open, or you could carry on with your further maths along with the other 3 if you want to, and then you can carry on with the course, having had an external exam to kind of back up your knowledge up to that stage. Now, the course itself does have to be studied alongside maths, so therefore you will have to pick maths and further maths as 2 options. That's why further maths tends to be picked as a 4th choice. And it takes a look at the more abstract ideas in mathematics. So very early on, we'll take a look at the idea of complex numbers, the idea of what an imaginary number is, extending the numbers that we know. So that kind of introduces the idea that numbers are 2-dimensional. So numbers aren't just placed on a number line, they do have a 2-dimensional aspect to them. We also have a look at the idea of matrices, so arrays of numbers, and that is an idea that's used in computer animation, and again, different ideas in mathematics that could be useful in later life. We'll extend calculus somewhat, we'll take a look at further trigonometry as well, and then we move on to more applied content. So we take a look at further statistics and further mechanics, mainly to develop the knowledge you've picked up in maths. And taking those ideas further. So we'll look at further probability distributions and look at further ideas of mechanics as well. They, again, will all be examined at the end of the 2 years. There's no coursework element for further maths either. There'll be 2 exams on the core content, 1 on the statistics and 1 on the mechanics. They're all equally weighted, so the core content for further maths will be 50% of the course, stats 25% and mechanics 25%. Obviously, you will have the AS qualification at the end of the first year, which will not count towards your overall grade at the end of the 2 years, but you still get an AS qualification that you can record on your UCAS application, and if you choose to end and stop the subject at the end of the first year, you still have a qualification and something to show for that year. We offer one-to-one support as often as we can, so in free periods, in workshops, usually on a Wednesday afternoon, we'll be able to assist you. You will get given weekly assignments to complete, both for maths and further maths if you're choosing both. And these are designed to obviously help you to practice your knowledge. And no doubt in your studies of maths so far, you've come to realise that practice makes perfect. And you have to keep practicing, otherwise things get rusty. So the assignments are designed to give you a revision section. So you are continuously revisiting questions you've covered in the past, as well as obviously a new material section developing the skills of the topics that have just been covered. So you'll regularly in those assignments be continuously revising things from the past so it doesn't ever get too rusty. There are obviously lots of links in the content, so certain topics will revisit previous topics anyway. There's always that natural revision going forward in the year. The new material will get marked by your lecturer. The revision questions will be checked, but it's your responsibility to get things checked and make sure you are seeking help if you need to. We do use email support a lot as well, so you will get assigned a college email address. You just need to email your lecturers and they'll be happy to get back to you and give you any support that you might need. In terms of online support, we have access to an online textbook, so the same textbooks that we use in class you'll have access to at home in an electronic format. They're really good because they're jam-packed full of worked examples, some of which are similar to questions that you'll meet on the assignments, which can help to support you. They also have answers to all exercises in that book, so you can look those up online, and they have the step-by-steps of how to get to the answer, which is again really useful. We have all sorts of other resources online, so worksheets, exam questions. We link to useful video tutorials as well, so you don't have to go rooting around. So there's all sorts there available for you. Well, what we set throughout the year are those weekly assignments, so you'll have a regular ongoing idea of how things are going, and you'll get a weekly mark on those assignments. But we also set half-termly progress tests designed to cover the content that we've got up to by that stage. So again, you have that ongoing process of knowing how things are going, and you'll be supported to improve things if tests don't go as well, and you'll be actively encouraged to resit and resubmit things, because again, maths, the best way to learn it is to learn from those mistakes that you make. So if you do make any mistakes, and we all do it, you just have to redo it, reattempt it, and we'll be more than happy to remark things for you. In terms of other support and other progress measures, we'll obviously have mocks throughout the year. So the first mock will be after Christmas, covering all of the core content, which as I mentioned earlier is the majority of the course, 2/3 of the course, so most important that we get that up to speed at an early stage. And then before the progression exams, you'll have a mock for the stats and mechanics as well to prepare for that. The progression exams are then designed to check to see how progress has gone after the first year. Again, you'll be regularly supported to prepare for those, and again, you'll be regularly supported if things don't go to plan and you need to revisit a few areas before you start the second year. We provide the textbooks in class, and as I say, we've got electronic copies at home. You won't be issued with a textbook because the electronic copies are just as good. Of course, you can buy your own copies if you want to. The only thing we really insist is that you get one of these. So this is the recommended calculator by the exam boards. So we have the Casio FX 991EX ClassWiz. And this calculator does a lot of useful things, and it's useful for checking answers throughout the course as well. We would recommend that you get that by Christmas because it's absolutely necessary when we get to these statistics, because you'll need to be able to generate answers from your calculator for that. But we would recommend you get it as early as possible, because as soon as you get it, you can start to learn the shortcuts, you can start to find all those answer checking facilities on there. So I hope that's enlightened you a bit more about the course. We look forward to you starting the course in September, or if you're watching this in preparation for next year, we'll look forward to seeing you next year. If you have any questions, do feel free to email the inquiries email address, and they'll be sure to forward it on to me, where I can answer any queries you might have. But really, at the end of the day, if you are thinking of studying A-level maths, providing you've really enjoyed that subject at GCSE, your algebra skills are really up to speed, and you've got your grade 6 or above, you have no problems with the course. Come with that enthusiasm, come prepared to make mistakes crucially, and be prepared to then correct those mistakes, and you'll get the most out of the course.